Alright, welcome everyone. So we're exploring a paradox. A total paradox. This paradox is boundlessly energetic, is radiant and alive. It's full on in every single way. It's profound. It's totally unconditional love and unconditional freedom. And it has nothing to do with knowing, which is seems to be one of the least favourite things for people to hear. So let's say it again. It has nothing to do with knowing. It has nothing to do with knowledge or understanding. In a sense, what's being spoken about here is complete gibberish. It's appearing out of nothing, and itself is nothing. And the suggestion is that there is only nothing. Total nothing. And this nothing is simultaneously not becoming, but simultaneously everything. So all there is everything and nothing. They're two words that seem to conjure up some kind of idea and imagined thoughts in the apparent human psychophysical organism, but it's just that. It's just this. It's just what is. So there's a sort of an isness to what's being shared. And it's immediate. It's immediate. So the idea that there's a future and a past is based essentially on thoughts and experience of moving in a direction. But really, there's not even a now. There's just the total spontaneity and immediacy of what appears to be happening. And it's so sort of fresh and vibrant and pure, and it's totally ungraspable. It can't be claimed or owned or held down. So this is so sort of spontaneous and fresh and alive. In a sense, it's totally organic, natural. It's totally natural. But what seems to happen within this, or as this apparent natural reality, natural real unreality, is something else seems to happen. And that would be the appearance of separation, the appearance of localization. So an appearance of being a person seems to happen. And what seems to happen is a sense of position. A position that seems to take on space. So all of a sudden, there's a here. And by there being a here, a sense of here, there seems to be a sense of I am here. So I am seems to come along with this. It's the I am dream of being a real separate individual. And then consciousness seems to be more apparent, so there's an awareness of, there's a sense of here and I am, and then by being a sort of a position, there seems to be a knowing of everything. And I am knowing this and that. So there's a seeing, and there's sort of a separation going on, a separation experience of subject and object. So I am seeing the tree. I, the separate self, am knowing the tree. Even a sense of separation from the body. There's a sense that there's someone that's having a body, that's in the body perhaps. And even thoughts and feelings too. So everything that is perceived is sort of felt as an object that I am knowing about or am relating to. And this is the knowing dream. It's the dream of being an apparent separate self, and it's an illusion. It's a total illusion. And what also seems to somehow become solidified as a real sort of fixed sense is time, now. So it's like thoughts are appearing about memories and what's apparently happened. So not what apparently is happening, but what apparently has happened. And so this sort of sense that time is absolutely real also seems to come with that.
Coordinates in time and space almost.
Yeah, it's like time and space and consciousness.
Yeah.
They all seem to go together in this knowing dream. And so when this time seems real, it's like everything seems to be moving in a direction. So I am going in this direction. I come from here and I'm going there. A and B. And C, if you count the now as well. So that is part of the dream. And of course memories can still appear without anyone claiming or knowing them. But when that whole sort of time, the contracted energy and the sense of self is somewhat appearing to be real and substantial, time seems to be real. And this seems to cause a great deal of dis-ease and dissatisfaction. This all seems to become a problem for that energy. It feels like it's lacking somehow. Being a sort of an energy of feeling localized, it feels tense and contracted, and so it feels like it's lost something and then it needs to go looking for it. So this is when seeking apparently begins. So this sense of loss and sense of incompletion, a sense of lack, and out of that seems to emerge a going somewhere. So with my sense of time and space, with my sense of position, and now also with my sense of free will and choice, I'm going to move in a direction. I'm going to choose carefully, or maybe I don't choose carefully, but I'm still choosing, of course. But I'm going in a direction, this way or that way. So maybe it turns towards drugs and alcohol, sex and food or whatever. And maybe it turns towards religion and spirituality. Maybe what I've lost can be found in a scripture, a holy scripture of some kind, or the sutras. And you know, this sort of sense of longing it can become very sensitive. It seems it can be felt as very sort of visceral and pervasive, and like it's a huge dilemma. And that goes on and on, it seems, but it's not really happening. It just seems to be happening. And sooner or later, that whole sort of contracted energy, being a total insubstantial illusion and dream, falls away. So maybe it falls away when the body breathes its last apparent breath, or maybe it just is walking, you know, through a field or through a busy road. It doesn't matter. It seems to have no rules whatsoever. But sooner or later, this sort of whole contracted energy can seem to wobble. It can seem to shake and shimmer, and sometimes, sometimes it can just completely collapse altogether. And that would be the end of that which is actually looking for what is already. So the suggestion is that this separation energy is a total illusion, and it's actually wholeness playing a magic trick. It's wholeness playing a magic trick of hide and seek, of where's wholeness, where is wholeness. And wholeness is actually revealed to be all there is. So that all there is wholeness, all there is unconditional freedom. Unconditional freedom. And what this sort of gibbering and jabbering on about all of that is just exposing that this is wholeness. It's not actually teaching it, because that would be totally dualistic. It would be imposing a journey and a destination which has already been revealed to be sort of an illusion of moving on a path with free will and choice. So this is not an instruction of any kind. It's just simply pointing out, it's exposing and illuminating that what's longed for is what is already. and somehow or other there can be a resonance and a receptivity to that sort of exposing. Something energetic can seem to be felt, it can seem to sort of allow, for want of a better word, some kind of release, but that's not something that anyone has or claims or knows about. It's the end of all of that. It's the end of the claimer, the owner, the knower, the author of the story. It's the total obliteration of that which is looking for that which is already what is. And of course, the looking and the longing is also wholeness. So it doesn't see anything wrong or right with anything at all. Being totally radically free, the whole sort of separation experience is just as whole as a body that's apparently collapsed and fallen away. And so there's no desire to change anything. The desire to change something only seems to arise out of that energy of separation.
That pushes in the direction of time as a real thing.
Yeah.
It seems like school. I mean, not saying that's all it is or whatever, but it's not like school teaches about that stuff, but it's like the idea of getting up and then getting dressed to go somewhere, and then that kind of concept is like...
So you can graduate and so you can...
Yeah, move on to the next level. You know,
Yeah.
you're going to keep in time you are, so you get a good job now, you get more money, more things, you know?
So the suggestion is that sort of momentum of society with schools and workplaces and stuff is not responsible for the separation energy.
It's despise us.
But it's just seemingly affirming it.
Yeah.
Hello there.
This is
What are you here for? No, it's not open.
Yeah.
So yeah, the contracted energy is not dependent on other people
no
who are living in the dream. It just simply affirms it. It just
Yeah.
affirms that
That's what I'm
yes,
saying,
you are a real person,
Yeah.
and you are real, and that you do have free will and choice. But that doesn't, that doesn't really have much of an influence as much as people think it does. Because this collapse can happen totally spontaneous and regardless of, wherever and whatever the apparent individual is up to. And people might say it gets harder as you get older, and all sorts of excuses come along, but it doesn't play by the rules.
No, it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as time. So it's
No.
death and there's no such thing as birth. It's just what it is.
It just is
So
what it is.
you shop away this lifetime or next life, all that kind of rubbish is just like a story, isn't it? It's all a story.
It's all, well, the me is the story.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So when there's a me there, there's a story. I think I know what I mean in my mind. Squatches talking. What do you mean? I read this book the other day, Alexis, sorry, but it's about I sent the photo tonight about the Carl Jung piece about some of about becoming an individual is important, So I think for a long time that was an important thing for the humanity.
Yeah, individuation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Freddie. Is it Freddie? Do you prefer?
Yeah. Freddie's good. Can you hear me okay?
It's unbelievably quiet for some reason, but I can hear you. I'll bring you closer.
Let me just how about that? Is that a bit better?
I think it's the phone, to be honest, but I'll just hold you close. Yeah. So there was a lot that was said there, and unfortunately for some reason this phone is unbelievably quiet, so not anyone else can on YouTube or Sam next to me can hear, but I can hear what you're saying, so just repeat some of that. So what was said was that the human race is a race, which is very good. I've not heard that one before. and that you know, the school, the education system, and and working and all of this seems somewhat appropriate, and yeah, many people would never be able to even I mean, people living in and as that separation experience, most people will switch off from this straight away, because it's totally exposing the entire illusion of a real individual with real free will and choice, with meaning and purpose to their life, going in a direction towards something better. And so all of those things, as far as the separate individual experience is concerned, is horrifying. I mean, it's possibly the worst thing that an individual heavily enmeshed in the dream could ever hear. It's brutal, but when there's an apparent receptivity, it's actually liberating. It's liberation, but it's not liberation for the one looking for it, but it is liberation from the one looking for it. And that sort of release, it can't be described. It can't be described. It's just profound, and it's so sort of all-encompassingly boundless and loving. Thanks, dude. Some of that cinnamon went down. Yeah. So just that was one answer to that. But we've also got another question online. Hey, is life only special to the individual? Does any of this matter? So, is life only special to the individual? Yes. Does any of this matter? No. So yeah, for the separate experience, everything seems to be totally full of meaning and purpose, significance. It's all important. Things like synchronicity, you know, or déjà vu. All of this seems very profound and meaningful. And you know, sorry to say, but none of that is meaningful. It's just what's appearing to happen. It's not meaningful because meaning depends on time. The meaning depends on time to be absolutely real, because if there was a meaning, we'd all be going somewhere. But this isn't really going anywhere because it's beyond time. It's not limited in any way, shape or form. So it doesn't matter. But when, if there ever was a when, this sort of wholeness, which is beyond time and space, is apparently revealed to no one and for no one, there's no need for it to matter. There's no need for meaning. It's totally redundant. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's so sort of unnecessary. But that me energy, it's sort of totally resistant to what is. It's never satisfied. And so it applies meaning and purpose to hope for something better. It's all about resistance, ultimately. It's a resistant energy to the isness, because it doesn't like its experience of being separate from everything, and yet it's institutionalized by that. So it tries to stay in that by knowing everything it can. Knowing as much as possible, like the greedy caterpillar. It just keeps accumulating until it explodes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's still very quiet, unfortunately, but that's not, I don't think that's you, I think that's this phone.
Alright.
Try again?
I'm testing.
That's so much better. So it was the...
Oh, that's better?
It was
good.
Yeah, it's the
Good.
phone. I've just pressed a little button and now you're a lot louder.
Oh, lovely. Yes. There's I mean, I can understand why people talk about fear when they're grappling with this, because they resonate with it, but at the same time there's a sense that their existence is on the line, and so it's I love the analogy of if we are, or existence is a kind of free-flowing river, and we are, for no particular reason, whirlpools, we're still water. I mean, it's just a pattern of being that is somehow caught up with itself and is contained and restricted, and so when it's somehow seen that it's just all water, that it's not a judgment on a whirlpool,
No.
but it just seems to be unnecessary, and I find, I mean, I've come to this. I came to this during COVID, and so I've listened to a lot of different speakers, and I must say, I think you're just absolutely wonderful, but not blowing smoke up your arse.
I've always smiled at that point. I'm smiling if I smile like you guys.
Oh. Yeah. Yes. It's not seen, but yes, it's the word when it's seen that there's, you know that. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, there is just boundless energy. There is just energy, and energy being boundless appears in any which way. It appears to be totally spontaneous and chaotic, and it appears to be ordered, structured and routine. It appears as timed, it appears as spatial, it appears as it's totally free of agenda or intention. One of the amazing things that this sort of contracted energy seems to do, although it doesn't really do it, but it seems to happen and appear out of that separation experience, is that by feeling like meaning and purpose is all very important, it projects that onto everything else. It projects it onto the apparent universe at large. So not only does my sort of life have meaning and purpose, but the whole universe has meaning and purpose, and that someone somewhere must have chosen to do this, and someone must be overseeing all of this and calling the shots and judging everything, that every little thing that everyone does. So it projects that sort of arrogantly, really, onto the universe, because that's another way of it trying to stay safe, and so it will try and immortalize itself in any which way it can to feel like it's secure and safe in the world, which it isn't. And you know, when it comes anywhere near an apparent communication like this, it's like it's obvious that it's walking on thin ice.
Yes.
Ray, my favourite American apparently. Is the illusion an illusion? Yes, why not? The illusion is that there isn't an illusion. That's the illusion. The illusion is that there isn't an illusion. And you know what's being shared is just, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. This is not making sense. Anyone who seems to think they know what they're talking about, I don't advise anything. I don't tend to give any instruction or advice in life. But one thing I would just suggest is anyone who thinks they know exactly what they're talking about, stay the hell away from.
Yes. So would you say that, say for example, sorry.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, you've gone muted again.
Okay. That the phenomenon of a mirage, for example, when you're in the desert or you see a hot road ahead of you, and you see sometimes it looks like water, and it seems that so that would be one definition of an illusion. Yeah. But knowing that it's an illusion it's still there. It's still shimmering,
right.
But the person or the entity or the you have a good phrase for it, the psycho organism. There's a difference between believing that that's water, yeah, and just knowing that it's not water. I mean, it still looks the same, but the psychoorganism is no longer convinced.
Yeah. So this isn't either. It's not a belief in an illusion or a belief that there is an illusion, and it's not knowing that there's an illusion either. It's the end of both. So there may be the sense that there's a belief in what's being shared, but that would be some kind of misinterpretation. And it, the knowing is that the illusion is that this is known, and that I am knowing this and that, and I, wanting to remain steadily and securely in knowing, claims that it knows that itself is an illusion, and it just doesn't make any sense. And I mean, what this is revealing is that actually knowing, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as knowing. There seems to be the appearance, and very confidently, there's the appearance that this is known, like that I know that I am speaking, for example, but there's nothing that is known. I mean, we could say like a rainbow, I know that that's a rainbow, but who can legitimately claim to know that? Who can legitimately claim to know anything? So the whole sort of knowing claim in that respect is the dream. It seems to be a twisted joke that every person born is destined to become a contracted energy. It's so bizarre. Like, who's running this thing? Yeah, so no one's running it, and no one is. And apparently, not every human body is born with a contracted energy. Again, that's not known, so it's... But there's no telling what could happen, what can happen, what does happen, what is happening. Because it's not happening. And it's unknowing. But yeah, apparently there are some bodies who, have never had this apparent sense of separation. Human bodies, obviously. When everything is an illusion, the illusion is also an illusion, which means there is no one. So it's not that, again, the way in which this is being talked about is sort of a certain language and all the rest of it, but it's the suggestion that's being shared is that it's not that everything is an illusion, it's that everything being absolutely real is an illusion. And that sense that everything is absolutely real seems to appear from the experience of being separate from it. So the sense of contracted energy, which then seems to, lead to this separation energy and everything else, is an illusion. And then everything else is an illusion as well, because everything else is felt as real and substantial and solid and fixed, and I am relating to it. So when that illusion is apparently happening, everything else is objectified and all this and that. Do you mind sharing your story of when the self apparently fell away? There's some apprehension to do that because it's nothing to do with anyone, and it's certainly nothing to do with me, and it didn't really happen, because the end of an illusion is something that doesn't really happen because an illusion isn't really happening in the first place. But what seemed to happen, if this can satisfy you, is that, there was a lot of seeking, seeking for this substance, seeking for that high, and then religion, Buddhism, yoga, meditation, Qigong, and then not non-duality, but teachers who were saying that they were talking and teaching non-duality, and then eventually discovering Tony Parsons. And the rest is death story. There wasn't a moment. There can never be like a moment when it's said, that's when she wasn't anymore. It never really happened. It's timeless. You remind me of a young Jim Newman.
Not so. Where people go.
Is becoming a winner or a loser in this apparent world is not up to the apparent individual. So what's being shared here, not sure when you tuned in, but what's being shared is that there is no real apparent individual. When there's a sense of energy that feels localized, feels real, feels separate, it feels like there's a feeling that there's control, and there's this sort of sense that I am overseeing. I am powering up the house of the body, and I am choosing which way it moves its hand, and I'm speaking and saying this and that. And so it's up to me to work hard and effort, and and then perhaps through my own effort, volition, free will and choice and control, I will win. It's the dream. Winning and losing simply apparently happens, regardless of if there's a sense of control or not. I think we need to lock that door. Thanks, dude. Does Alexis still cry in a story? Yeah, so crying can happen, regardless of if it's claimed by someone or not. Yeah. You get teary when watching a chick flick or something. All emotions, like the whole sort of the whole sort of emotional landscape, for want of a better term, is totally radically free and allowed. So everything, once this whole sort of sense of being a real person, like, is sort of apparently collapsed, it's like everything is radically allowed and free. Not by someone, it's not allowed by someone. It's not like someone says, yeah, the bouncer just says it's a free-for-all, everyone can come in. It's just the total radical allowance of all the emotions. You know, anger, sadness, joy. I mean, what we're talking about here is an unconditional embrace. This embrace is so totally freeing and loving. I mean, it's so sort of whole. This embrace is like, it's indescribable. Is your friend liberated too? So no one becomes liberated. The person dies and then liberation is.
I suppose that's the thing that people are scared of when you talk about the person dying.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
You know, that's...
Sorry, Ed.
Yeah.
I know that word.
Well,
that word can trigger some people.
Well, I mean, death does seem to be the end of something.
Yeah, the end of that which wasn't happening.
Well, I mean, it's the same when people give themselves over to a religion or with Jesus. They talk about the leap of faith, that somehow, you know, you give the steering wheel over to God type of thing, which is a scary thing to do, but what you're talking about is that there is no steering wheel.
Yeah. There's no steering wheel. No steering wheel. Yeah. There's not even a road. No. It's the great cosmic joke. It's the great cosmic joke that you know, that God created some little beings to watch over and you know, gave them some of His control. It's just, it's a story. I mean, that sort of contracted energy would never subscribe to the possibility that it could even surrender itself to the whole and then allow everything to be in free flow, which is already happening anyway. It's already free flowing. What seems to be is sort of this sort of energy. What's been suggested before is that what seems to happen is that this sense of contracted energy in the body is misinterpreted somehow by the nervous system as a sense of control. So like by tensing up, it apparently feels like it's in control. It's not control, it's tension.
Yes, and so you hear these stories of people on their deathbeds suddenly becoming very peaceful. Because it's futile. They themselves, at last, they recognize it's futile.
Yeah. and then it's too late to tell everyone. I mean, that's, you know, this sort of, you know, this is usually, or at least often, terrifying for that sort of energy to come anywhere near.
Alexis.
But it's what's longed for. It's what's longed for is this sort of liberation. I mean, it wants to be in control, and yet it wants freedom. But the freedom that we're talking about, which is unconditional freedom, is actually like, I mean, just imagine if everything was allowed to be exactly as it is. That's unconditional freedom, because it is already allowed to be what it is. And then with that, apparently, although, you know, there's still pain and anger and what was before deemed as unpleasant sensations, thoughts and feelings, but when like it's recognised that oh crap, everything is radically allowed. It couldn't be more freeing, but it just never is had by anyone. So me thinks it wants conditional freedom, and that's another joke, a cosmic joke. Personal conditioned freedom. It's a paradox of terms, contradiction of terms. Doesn't make any sense.
I was going to say that the way you talk of this sort of what this is, non-duality is, it sounds a bit like what happens after death, heaven, or you know what I mean, a bit like that. You know what I mean? There's some kind of
the kingdom of God.
Yeah, if you like, the beloved. What happened when you died? The beloved.
Yeah.
The beloved is all.
The beloved is all there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just pretending to hide from itself.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. Who told you that? Who told you that nonsense?
Some say that this is death already. Yep.
Yeah.
A live death. The Simpsons intro with the play wheel. Watch the Simpsons intro with the play wheel. Well, Alexis does live on Springfield Road, so... So is there like zero self-conscious there? So there isn't a there isn't a here, there is just what is. If you mean by self-consciousness sort of worrying about what people think of me and all that all of that crap goes away with contracted energy, because it's constantly worrying about this and that. It's very restless, again, not really doing that, but that's what seems to happen. It's a restless kind of energy. And so it, you know, it's these thoughts come up like, what if I say this, or I shouldn't do that, and it's trying, you know, tripping over itself all the time by trying to figure out how life is supposed to be. I could tell you all sorts of amusing stories about what Alexis used to get up to and what she didn't. How it was all sort of thought that this is all sort of divine and cosmic, and that you know, one day I'll be really holy and sacred, and it's just, you know, the things that the seeker does is really quite sort of innocent and sweet, but tremendously laughable as well. Life seems to, well, not life, but this sort of playfulness can seem to come about because nothing is really that serious anymore, and it's certainly not personal.
There is also a oh, yes, you can hear me. Given that we are pack animals, and that to be ostracized, I mean, particularly I've got a teenager in the house, so the level of anxiety just to do his hair in the morning is off the Richter scale, and I just have so much compassion, because I think I think also it's a something to do with age as well, as that to recognize how unnecessary it is, and how it is a self-inflicted cage of anxiety. It's so and there's nothing that one can do but look on and just be there when he needs me to be there, and I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it's just it's such a. Do you do these talks through because you feel compassion for what self does to itself?
Well, there is.
What would you say? I mean, I know there is. Well, I don't know anything, but the motive for you to do these talks, what would you say that is?
Okay, so you're not looking after your son. There is just looking after son. And this isn't choosing to show up and talk about non-duality or talk about a communication which points to non-duality, however you want to word it. It just happens. It just happens. It happens all by itself, totally, seemingly appearing out of a total absence of personal experience or choice and free will and meaning and purpose. But you could say it's just joyful. It's like a joyful expression that feels like a bit of a celebration. It's very enjoyable and it's passionate. So it's like it's sort of alive and it's coming out, whether there's a wanting for that or not. And it's just sort of alive and free and passionate, and it's joyful, yeah. And there is joy, when there's a resonance, when it's heard that there's a resonance for some, that there's something that can be seemingly enjoyable about that, but it's recognised that there's no one to free. This comes from a Buddhist conditioning background, apparently, in a story that was all about loving kindness and the metta-bhavana and save all sentient beings from samsara and all the rest of it. whilst simultaneously maintaining the bodhisattva vow that there aren't actually no beings to save. You know, it's like all of that conditioning was there, and you know, it's just, you know, but really there's just a sort of a joy that's expressing itself through an apparent body, and you know, but it can't legitimately be said to be with a motive or an intention. I mean, if everyone switches off YouTube now and never watches a video ever again, that's what's happening, it's fine. Are there glimpses of this that we encounter day to day? So, not to use the cop-out answering the question with a question, but who would know? Who would know that? There's no knowing whether there are glimpses or there aren't. What may be more apparently likely, and it's a story, so we're talking about an illusion, but what may be possibly happening is that because this contracted energy is totally insubstantial in every single way, because everything is insubstantial, that contracted energy, and time isn't real either, so that contracted energy is not as real. Well, it's not real at all, but it's not obviously not as real as it thinks it is. And it's definitely not as consistent as it thinks it is either. So it thinks that when I go to sleep, I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming, then I wake up and I carry on my life. You know, it depends not only on free will, choice, meaning and purpose, but it seems to depend on consistency either, like it was there the whole time, witnessing everything unfolding. But it's actually totally insubstantial. So there doesn't seem to be any sense of separation, even for the most apparently contracted energy in the whole universe. Doesn't seem to be any sense of separation when there's no objectification. So in deep dreamless sleep, there's no separation during deep dreamless sleep because nothing is happening. And yeah, throughout the day, there may be times when someone, again, this is just an example, you take it or leave it, but there will be times when someone drives to work or drives somewhere, and when that person arrives at the so-called destination, it's like, how did I even get here? Because they're used to driving the car, you know, and it all becomes totally sort of seamless. It just happens, and there was no need for any sort of sense of ownership of that. So this contracted energy does seem to be very coming and going, but it's not really coming or going, and it's not real anyway. You know, it seems to hate hearing that it doesn't have control, but it's so bloody obvious. It's so, I mean, it could not be any more obvious that there is absolutely no control. I mean, who's controlling what colour eyes to have? Who's controlling what colour, you know, how to, you know, the hair growing and you know, the body aging and all the rest of it, and thoughts appearing. It's so obvious that there's just no control at all. I mean, furthermore, it's like the sort of exposure of this is like exposing the abundance of the isness, which it just could not be any more obvious. But that contracted energy being illusory, it just seems to selectively not hear this, even though it's not choosing to do that. But it's like, it's so seemingly stubborn that it just seems to deny this in every single way. And paradoxically, at the same time, everything that's happening is constantly reminding that this is it, this is wholeness, this is boundless, this is free. Everything, hearing the words, seeing the screen, sitting on the seat, the sounds around the body, everything is the beloved. There is only the beloved. Much love.